What's going on, all you wild zombies? It's the Cinefellas Rascals back for another 31 Days of Horror. I think this is the 6th year we've done this, back talking about our favorite genre in the best month of the year. We're talking about October 2021. It's been crazy the past year of the pandemic, but we have movies and TV shows to look forward to, especially in the fall season. So this month, we're going to be talking all things horror, movies, TV shows, and stuff on our podcast, and more treats for your trick-or-treat bag. So
trick or treat.
Trick or treat. I'm Count Logan Myers. It's my good mate over there.
I'm Uncle Henry Hill. And tonight we're going to be talking about a cult classic film from 1985. We're going to be talking about Dan O'Bannon's Return of the Living Dead.
The Return of the Living Dead.
Wow. So this is the first zombie film from Dan O'Bannon, obviously. And this is 1985's Return of the Living Dead. And this takes a different look on the zombie apocalypse. You know, we saw George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead before this, even Day of the Dead. So this comes, you know, after, Romero has already established the zombie genre. You know, obviously he's the godfather of those films. And he established all the initial rules and, you know, how the zombies move, what they crave. And with this film, Return of the Living Dead, it takes all those tropes that we learned from those movies and it changes some things. For instance, this time is the first time on film where zombies can run as well as speak. And we see several times throughout this film where they do both. And in addition to that, zombies have always, you know, in the Romero films, craved human flesh. Well, in Return of the Living Dead, they now crave brains. So we start out in the Return of the Living Dead. It's these two guys that work at this medical supply warehouse. Freddy's pretty new there, so he's showing them what's at this. You need a medical supply. Basically, it's a place where, you know, medical students get the cadavers, get the, you know, things they need to study in medical school. And, you know, so it has skeletons, it has preserved body in the freezer. So Ernie's taking Freddy around the place and showing him everything. There's some dogs that are split, so you can see their insides. You know, you can see it's like cross section of them. So you see their insides. It's really creepy in that place. There's all these, you know, weird stuff. There's like a board with a bunch of butterflies on it. So it's all about medical studies. So it has all these creepy things in it. And it shows Freddy is these military barrels that are locked down in the basement.
That's right. And I love the two actors in this. You have Tom Matthews that played Tommy Jarvis in Friday the 13th. I love his character, the young guy. And then you had Don Calfa that played Ernie. Really setting up some really great sequences in the first act of the film, especially. I love everything that goes on down there. And bringing in, what was it, Tarman, the Tarman zombie?
The Tarman, yes. Yeah. Which was this body that was in one of those barrels. And when they released the gas initially down in the basement, it looked like the body that was in there was sort of melting, but it was taking this form of Tarman. So eventually you'll see Tarman show up in the movie, and it's freaking wild. It's crazy. Also, when they release this gas within the medical warehouse, it awakens the cadaver, of course. And if you go back and watch that part with the cadaver looks really silly. It's like all yellow looking and mustardy. It looks like a guy, you know, has a bald cap on. And so it awakens not only the cadavers, but also, you know, all the split dogs and all the dead butterflies. So anything that was not alive before, it reanimates them and brings them back. So you get this pretty crazy scene in the beginning where the bodies are chasing after Ernie and Freddy in the warehouse. And
it's everything comes to life.
Yes, everything comes to life, and they're freaking the fuck out. Yeah. So they're going to have to do something, and they end up meeting with this guy that works at the morgue. And also, as a side story to this thing that happens at the medical facility, we also see this group of friends, these punks, and we're introduced to these punk rockers, and they're walking down the street. They know one of them knows Freddie, so eventually when Freddie gets off work, they're going to meet up with him, and they're planning to go have a wild fucking party at the cemetery.
Yeah, it sets
on
up
July 3rd in 1984.
It sets it up. It's so ridiculous. You have all the cliche 80s, punk characters, the mohawks and the nose piercing, the chains, the leather, but it was so awesome at the same time. This is the most punk rock horror movie ever. And them going to the cemetery, sets up some like nudity and just partying and ridiculousness that is so great about this movie, that gives it so much charm, is really these characters that they introduce. Yes. And it really sums up the times, in the 80s. There was a big punk rock movement. So it's cool how they threw that in.
It made it feel really of the time then in the 80s. Yeah, very cutting edge with these punks who had some awesome names. Spider, played by Miguel Nunez Jr. And then you had Scuzz, Trash, Suicide. So they had some really funny names in there, and being characters. And we also have the character Beverly Randolph plays Tina. Tina is with Freddie, their boyfriend and girlfriend. So they're going to meet up with Freddie after a shift, hopefully, but they're going to get wild at the cemetery. And that brings us back to Frank and Freddie going to the morgue and meeting with Ernie's character. And we were introduced to Ernie. He's bouncing around the morgue. He's got his headphones in, kind of like I have my AirPods in at night at work, listening to podcasts and music, just bouncing around. He's like sawing off part of some guy's, arm or something, doing an autopsy. And they come in with these trash bags, and they don't know you don't know what the hell's in the trash bags. He doesn't know. Ernie doesn't know. They're moving. Like, it's like something in the bags that are moving. So he's like, what are you guys doing here? What the hell do you need? They need him to incinerate these bags, basically, in the incinerator there in the morgue. Yeah. And he's asking, like, what the hell is in there? And Frank ends up telling them that it's rabid weasels. We have to kill these rabid weasels in these bags here. So they're going to incinerate them. And so Ernie agrees to it. He throws the bags in there and the incinerators. Really what's in the bags are these arms. It's the cadaver cut up into pieces. It's arms and legs. It's all these pieces. So this gas not only can bring back, a full body, it can, even reanimate even the small, like just an arm. So you have all these wiggly body parts in these bags. They're put in the incinerator and the smoke rises. And you see the smoke rising into the air. And it leads into where the whole zombie madness in this movie starts.
Yep,
because the smoke is going into the air, and right when the smoke is going in the air, it starts raining. So you get this toxic kind of rain, and it penetrates the ground. And of course, dead bodies are in the ground. So let's start the zombie apocalypse and Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah, you see all the corpses rising from the graves. And it was really cool seeing how they set that up and kind of elevated it where it started with Romero. They took it to the next level with this one. A really fun, unique, gory, good time. And it's something that was a staple in the 80s. Not like a direct sequel, but they kind of changed it up a bit and kind of expanded on the story that Romero created. Really setting up a lot of memorable practical effects. Some at the zombies look really cool and decayed in this movie. They talked, obviously, in this movie, which is really cool and unique. They did with the zombie character and really set up some really interesting and memorable characters throughout the film. And I think Tom Matthews as Freddy was probably my favorite in the punk rock people that showed up along the way. But really fun 1980s movie, a great movie to watch during the Halloween season, and definitely up there for one of the better, I guess, sequels you want to call it, in the franchises out there. But this is a staple of the 80s and really good movie to rewatch during the Halloween season.
For sure. I grew up watching this movie over and over again with my brother growing up. So this one's very memorable for me. This one means a little bit more than the other movies, just because, I'll always have this memory of watching these kind of movies with my brother. And this one was one of our favorites, if not our favorite. So, yeah. And I remember watching as a kid, it really struck me because in the beginning, this was, of course, growing up, this was before computers, before you could look up anything, with a couple, touches of your phone. We didn't know what was true. Like, we had history books and stuff like that. You had to go to the library to look in dictionaries, but it was harder to find information. So they, at the beginning of the film, they say this movie is based on true events. So as a kid, you're like, holy shit, really? Something like this actually happened? So that part of that really struck me as a kid, and it freaked me out. Looking back on it now, of course, everything looks funny as it was meant to be. This added more comedy to this genre of movies, this zombie genre. There's a lot of funny comedic parts. Some of the zombies even have some great lines. These paramedics end up getting eaten by zombies, and they're reanimated. They come back as zombies. So you see one of the zombie paramedic drivers reach in and grab the microphone and call for backup. And he's like, send more paramedics. And then you see some cops, and one of the cops becomes a zombie, and he gets on the CB and he's like, send more cops. So they had these classic lines in this movie. The punk rockers have some funny scenes there with Trash dancing up on the grave. And eventually, most of them are turned into zombies. But eventually it all leads to, at the finale here, they all barricade themselves in, and they have to fight off against, this seemingly nonstop force of undead that are coming after them. And like I mentioned at the beginning, they can run, so they're fast. You can't just run away from them and expect them to walk after you. They're going to chase you. They're more vicious in this movie. And like you mentioned, the special effects are really awesome in this. Practical effects and just how the zombies looked, it looked really cool for the time, especially. So looking back on this film, this is a cult classic for sure. Return of the Living Dead. Also, it's worth mentioning at the end, another thing as a kid that I thought, hey, maybe this actually happened was, at the end it says the military was called. They called the number on the can of trioxin at the end, call the military if all else fails, or call immediately. So they call this number on the canister. It shows this colonel of the military, or the armed forces, getting a call late at night, and he ends up sending this nuke to Louisville, Kentucky, and you see some footage of the nuke blasting off and landing, and then you hear some military people talking like, that was a successful launch. It's destroyed its target, looks like it had maximum effectiveness. So you think that the nuke is going to solve everything. Obviously everybody died in the town. But then at the end, the cycle happens all over again, all this, with the rain, it just soaks in and brings back even more dead, even the dead that were killed by the blast itself. So just a crazy movie, a cult classic for sure. Lots of great moments throughout, lots of quotable moments, some funny characters, Bert and Frank and Freddie. And like you mentioned, they had some fun parts, Don Calfa's Ernie. I love the core group of actors in this. I like the punk rockers. I love the music and the sound and just the silliness and fun of this movie. It had some fun with the George Romero movies, and added some different rules for the zombie genre that has continued on in The Walking Dead and the zombie movies we've seen of late, like Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. Even this movie for me will go down as one of my favorites of all time. I'll always remember it, especially at Halloween time. This is a really fun one to revisit. So please check this out on this 31 days of Halloween.
Of horror and macabre. So I'm going to give Dan O'Bannon's 1985 The Return of the Living Dead a 3.5 out of 5 Charman hair pieces.
I am going to give Return of the Living Dead a 4 out of 5 zombie Freddy hair pieces. Tina, if you love me, let me eat your brains.
So stay tuned to our YouTube channel right here throughout the month of October. We're going to be posting lots of horror movie reviews, new and old. Me and this guy over here, the old ball and chain over here. We'll be talking about lots of horror movies, and going to have a great time during the Halloween season. So stick around for that. If you guys haven't already, hit subscribe below, and also check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our website, cinefellas.com.
Well, we did it. We covered Return of the Living Dead for this 31 Days of Horror here at cinefellas.com. We love doing this every year. In the years past, Uncle Logan here has pretty much pulled all the videos by himself, so I'm happy to actually contribute and ramble on in these videos. These are fun. We're going to cover some that we haven't watched in a while. So I look forward to reviewing more with you, and we will be back very soon to review the next horror film, and I can't wait, mate.
Me either. And next time we'll have Uncle Stephen King stop by and talk some horror movies with us. Stephen, how could you? And also we'll be back. One of the newer films we're going to be checking out this month is Halloween Kills here in a few weeks. So, I mean, this guy will be back with Uncle Michael Myers and see what the body count looks like. So this is your two favorite ghouls signing out from Cinephils for 31 Days of Horror. Until next time.
Brains.